If we're going to do work at the command line interface on a gateway running Gaia, we first need to get to that command line interface. And there's a few ways we can do it. Number one, we could walk up physically to that device. And with a console connected to it, we could get console access directly at the gateway. That would be one option. Another option is we could have a client at our PC and connect via SSH over to the gateway. And that would give us command line interface access. And then third, we could be logged into Smart Console on the manager, and then from Smart Console, we could actually launch and connect via SSH from there over to the gateway. So for our demonstration and lab, let's do this. Let's start at the PC. We'll start at DC NUG as the computer. We'll launch Smart Console over to the manager, and then we'll open up a SSH session from the manager over to Firewall 1. So here on our computer, DC NUG, we'll go ahead and connect over to the security manager at .110 by logging in as admin. So we'll click Login. And then here in Smart Console, let's go ahead and click on Gateways and Servers. And from here, to get the command line interface over at Firewall 1, we'll simply right-click on Firewall 1. And from the drop-down, we'll hover over Actions. And then from the submenu, we'll select Open Shell. We'll put in our username and password and click Login. If it's the first time you're connecting, it's going to provide you with a fingerprint regarding Firewall 1. Now, because we're connecting right from the manager, we're definitely talking to the right gateway. However, if we were launching an SSH shell from our client directly and weren't sure whether or not we're connecting to the right firewall or gateway, we could take the extra step of going to that gateway, verifying the fingerprint, just to verify we're talking to the right device. So we'll click on Yes to continue. And that opens up a shell for us right here. Now, because we launched this from Smart Console, we can't do anything in Smart Console until we close this SSH session that's going over to Gateway 1. So let's go ahead and maximize this console window. So here logged into the command line interface, if we use commands like show, space, and then press the tab key, when using the command line, if we hit the tab key on our keyboard, it'll auto-complete to the part where it's unique, and it'll also show us additional syntax and options beyond what we've already typed. And as it shows us information at the CLI, when it shows us the option of more down here below, we have some options. One of the options is to press the Q key, which implies quit, which says I don't want to see anymore. Go ahead and stop and give me my prompt back. Or we could press the Enter key, and if we press the Enter key, that's going to give us one more line of output. Or if we press the space key on our keyboard, that'll give us one more page worth of output. So as an example, if I press Enter a few times, it's just giving us one line at a time. If we hit the space bar, it's going to give us a whole page at a time. And if we hit the Q key, that implies quit, and it simply takes us back to our prompt. So one of the options that it showed us in that list was the option of doing a show interface. So if we type in INTER and then hit tab again, it automatically completed up to the part where it's unique, show space interface. We can have show interface space or show interfaces, each of those with options that could follow it. So let's do a show interfaces space and all. And with the command show interfaces all in place, we'll press Enter, and that's going to show us all the interfaces, starting with Ethernet 0 as well as Ethernet 1 with their layer 2 addresses, their layer 3 addresses, respectively. Also, if the link is currently up or not. And if we want to get our command prompt back, because there's a more indicator at the bottom left, we can just go ahead and hit Q, and then it'll bring us back to our prompt. If we wanted to see just the list of interfaces on our system, we could do a show space interfaces and press Enter. And this shows us we have Ethernet 0, Ethernet 1, and also loopback 0. And if we wanted to see the details and statistics for a specific interface, we could use the up arrow key a couple of times and use the command show space interface space, and let's type in ETH1 for Ethernet 1 and press Enter. And that shows us just the details regarding interface Ethernet 1. Now, regarding the configuration on this checkpoint gateway, if we did a show space config and then hit the tab key, it's going to show us all the options that start with show space config. So if we wanted to see what was currently configured, we could type in show space configuration, and that would show us the configuration. So let's do that. Let's do a show space configuration, and once I typed in a few more characters, I hit the tab key to autocomplete, and then let's press Enter. And once again, we can hit Enter to do one line at a time, like I'm doing right now, or we can hit the space bar to do one page at a time, and then we could hit Q to quit and bring back our prompt. So from the command line, if we wanted to configure a different IP address, for example, on this interface, Ethernet 1, we could just use this syntax. Or if we wanted to change the state of an interface, or if we wanted to change the MTU of an interface, we could use the appropriate set command to do that. So let's go ahead and change the interface on Ethernet 1 from 6783.0.111 to .222. And to cheat just a little bit, I'm just going to highlight this and then right click, and that's going to paste that right down below. And then we'll just go back a little bit with the arrow key and we'll modify the last octet to make it 222 and press enter. And with that change, the running configuration of this checkpoint firewall is now using that IP address on that interface. Now, one really important thing to do after we make changes here is if we want that change to be in place after this gateway reboots, we need to save that configuration. So it's not just in RAM, but it's also in its stored configuration, so the next time it boots, it'll have that same information. And to do that, we're going to use the command save space config. And I'm going to type it right. Save space config. So save space config is going to save our current configuration. We'll press enter. It's done. And now if we want to exit out of this shell, we can type in exit, and it'll take us back to Smart Console. Now, one other thing that's really important to do is that if we're working with Gaia, either at the command line interface or with the web user interface, when we're changing IP information or routes, we want to have that refreshed inside of Smart Console. So to do that in Smart Console, what we do is we double click on Firewall 1, because that's where we changed the IP address. We click on Network Management. And then regarding the network topology and IP addresses, we simply click on Get Interfaces, and that's going to read in that information from the gateway over to the manager so we can have updated information there as well. So we'll go ahead and click on Get Interfaces. We'll click on Yes to confirm. There's our new IP address on Ethernet 1, which is great. We'll click on Accept, click on OK, and then we'll go ahead and click on Publish to release our lock so other administrators, if they need to manage or work with Firewall 1 and those properties, they can do so as well. So we'll click on Publish, and it's done. In this nugget, we've taken a look at how we can both access and use the command line interface on a checkpoint gateway to both view and make changes to the configuration. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.